We'll call to order and start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Yeah, they are. Moving on to item 3, open forum. In addition to public comment on agenda items, the commission offers an open forum whereby citizens may comment on governance issues over which the city of Nacogdoches has domain. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, members of the commission shall not discuss, deliberate, or make any decisions on topics not posted as an agenda item. Speakers should address all remarks to the commission and limit your remarks to no more than 3 minutes. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about before we jump into the regular agenda that's not already listed on the agenda tonight? Okay. I think is it listed on the agenda, the plot? Okay. The plot, yeah. This is on anything that's not coming up for business tonight. Move on to the consent agenda, approval of the minutes. Consider approval of the minutes from the August 14th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Have we had a chance to review, and if so, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept them as printed.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, aye. All those opposed say no. Okay. Moving on to the regular agenda. Regular agenda A, consider discussion, possible action on items removed from the consent agenda by commission action. I don't think we have anything. Moving on to 5B, public hearing. Consider approval for a specific use permit for light manufacturing and assembly in a B2 general business district on lots 4 and 5 of the Reese JE subdivision located at 2524 South Street and lot 77B-1, City Block 56 located at 2516 South Street. This request has been submitted by Cesar Escalante, case number SUP 2023-04.
Thank you,
Juan.
Chairman.
Yes,
Juan
sir.
Paulette, Planning Technician. These properties are located just south of where Old Lufkin Road splits from South Street, which gives these lots access to both streets. The purpose of the SUP is to allow for the continued use of light manufacturing and assembly of metal carport at these locations. The applicant originally opened at 2524 South Street as a car audio installation shop in 2011. Within this year, he has begun to assemble and distribute metal carports in the back of the car audio installation shop that is located at 2524 South Street. The owner recently purchased the adjacent property to the north located at 2516 South Street and plans to expand the carport business to that location. The owner has no plans to expand the footprint of either buildings. This property is zoned B2 general business and requires the approval of a specific use permit to conduct light manufacturing and assembly in the zoning district. The SUP is an extra layer of approval that allows staff, commission, city council the opportunity to impose additional conditions if necessary on such developments. Also, the SUP does not change the underlying zoning of the property. The applicant is proposing the following conditions to help mitigate any concerns from the adjacent property owners. Hours of operation are going to be Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., and closed on Sunday. All light manufacturing and assembly operations will be contained inside the interior of the property, and no parking or staging of the vehicles along Old Lufkin Road. And also construct a 7-foot tall metal fence along the western property line to buffer the residential area. This is a quick overview of the site plan. Starting from the south, you have the car stereo shop at 2524 with the carport assembly area located directly behind it. Just north of it is the shipping and receiving area, which they'll come in from South Street and exit out Old Lufkin Road. And then north of that is the storage area, which is the new building that that the applicant purchased to expand the carport business. And then behind that is the 7-foot tall metal fence that'll be along the western property line. Here's an example of the proposed fence that the applicant is going to construct. Here's some site photos, and this is subject property to the south, which is the car audio building on the top left. And then on the bottom right is the subject property to the north, where he's expanding the carport assembly and holding area. These are pictures of the back of the property, looking at it from Old Lufkin Road. And then this is the view from of the carport assembly area from Old Lufkin Road, as well as the shipping and receiving area. And this is a view of the shipping and receiving area, looking at it from South Street, as well as the view of the car audio installation area from South Street. And then also a view of the property along Old Lufkin Road, where the applicant is proposing to put the 7-foot tall metal fence to buffer the residential area to the west across Old Lufkin Road. Although the future land use plan calls for this area to be commercial, staff believes the proposed use is a lower intensity industrial use, and with the applicant's proposed conditions would therefore fit into the commercial zone. Staff believes that the SUP will not significantly affect the density of the area, and with the proposed conditions is compatible with the existing commercial properties. This slide shows the type of uses within the 200-foot notification area, and staff sent out 11 notices to the property owners within this area. Staff received 2 written responses in opposition of this request. The second response was received this morning and is included in your packets. The residents' concerns were that the business is expanding beyond what the space can handle, the parking along Old Lufkin Road, as well as the noise levels. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting for the property owners within 500 feet of the subject property on July 17th to discuss and answer questions about this request. None of the surrounding property owners attended that meeting. And this concludes staff's presentation. I can answer any questions from the commission.
Thank you, Juan.
And the applicant is here if you have any questions for him.
Does Mr. Escalante plan on presenting anything, or?
No, sir. Honestly, I had my little boy's meeting at school, and I didn't have anything, but...
Okay,
Okay.
you're good.
Yeah, I can answer any questions that you have.
Sounds good, thank you.
I have some questions. Can you go back to the zoning, not the zoning map, but the map that showed the plat lines? And just, did I hear you say that there were 2 comments? One was given to us late and the other one?
Yes, 2 written responses.
It's a single page right here, Maggie.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, that's one of them.
And there's an email that's in the back of the page of the
Right.
maps.
It's in there.
Okay, I was looking for it. and I was like,
It's the
oh,
last.
this one, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, is there parallax here or something? Because the black lines don't seem to line up with the property, what looks to be the property lines.
On our GIS map, this is taken off our GIS map, and those property lines aren't exact. CAD has to kind of stretch and conform them to, so they'll meet and there won't be any gaps in between the property lines. So those aren't exact.
So is it the blue line or the black line?
The
Because-
blue line is where they're proposing to put the fence.
Okay, thank you. And I'm gonna have to look at this letter real quick, I think.
Okay.
But I was curious about, is there noise associated with this manufacturing process? And is this type of activity included in the B2 list of?
No, it's
business?
not. It has to, only with the approval of a specific use permit,
Okay,
but it's not by right allowed.
okay, and then what about the noise level?
And that's, the conditions will help mitigate some of that, like the fence,
the
hours of operation will help mitigate.
I think as it relates to some of the concerns around loud music at, certain times of night, I think there's existing code and law that would address that,
Right.
that citizens have a avenue to pursue.
Have we had any complaints about noise violation? Do you know of that one?
I'm not aware of any complaints of the noise,
Okay.
just other than the responses of maybe loud music or noises coming from the property, but nothing from the police department.
Would the fence, would then there be no parking along Old Lufkin Road? Is that his plan?
Proposal, yes. To have everything self-contained inside the property,
Okay.
and all parking will be done in front or in the shipping and receiving area.
Is there a way for us to potentially mandate that so that people are not parking along there?
No, I think, no.
No,
No.
okay.
Well, I think we can, that's part of the proposal with the conditions, is that they won't park. Mr. Escalante's employees and the people waiting to be loaded up will not park along Old Lufkin Road.
So we can put that in there.
Yes, that can be one of the
As a
conditions.
condition.
Yes.
But if you can legally park on that street to begin with, I don't know that we could limit
Well,
legally. Yeah, it'd be very difficult to do, so.
So the fence is gonna go where all the blue lines are, or just the outer blue lines?
the outer blue lines, the inner blue lines are just the areas of the carport assembly as well as the shipping and receiving area. But the outer blue line delineates the fence.
And the complaint about the loud music, that's really not associated with the zone change or the special use permit.
No.
No.
Because he also runs a car audio shop, and sometimes they have to turn it up to test the amplifiers.
Yeah, this
So,
seems to
but
say
that's
that it's pretty
usually-
constant.
Surely if they close at 5 o'clock, they wouldn't be testing it
Correct.
after that.
Yes.
Wouldn't think.
On one total acre, how many buildings would you say could comfortably fit typically in a B2 area? Sorry if this question is might be a little bit out of the,
Well,
Just
1
look
acre
it
is
up on the. I can look it
45,000
up
square
on the-
feet, so you could have a pretty large building, but you'd have to have associated parking, et cetera.
right, exactly. So if we're looking at 3 buildings within 1 acre, parking in the front,
Are you concerned about the parking or?
just in general, traffic and parking, absolutely, yeah.
Because the business, the car audio shop is a little less than 2,000 square feet.
Right, I saw
And
that.
it's one per every 250 square feet. And then for the carport is one for every 1,000 square feet.
So we have adequate parking? Okay,
There's currently 13 in front of the car audio shop and approximately 7 or 8 in front of it used to be a mechanic shop, auto mechanic shop. And there's parking along, and that's where the applicant is proposing the workers to park in front of the mechanic shop or the new carport assembly area.
Okay.
And there's no proposed building additions?
just,
Right.
okay,
Yeah,
So
just
there's-
what's existing.
got it,
Yeah.
okay. Question for you as well, Juan, when we're talking about future land use and you said it's zone gonna be commercial. If we are looking at I-69 coming through with the master plan, have we gotten any further with the city about that in terms of how this is, what we are envisioning?
This area.
This area's well inside the loop. Do you know where this,
Yeah,
okay.
I know where this is at.
As far as the future land use, I'm not too sure. I can check and get back with you on it as far as
Okay.
what this area might be designated as
Okay,
with the new master plan and the comp plan.
Steve, do You know where we're
I
at?
can tell you preliminarily, the future land use map still shows all this as commercial. It's
Okay.
obviously not very viable for residential. and
Right.
So it is shown still as commercial.
Okay,
Sure.
that's what I wanted to know.
Can I just ask for clarification? So you're saying that the music and the noise and the spillover parking seems to be a common complaint amongst the two. Are you saying that can be included as a condition in the special use permit, that all vehicles associated with either one of these businesses are to be on his
Well-
property or in a public parking space? Because the person to the south is saying that they spill over and onto their property. And maybe you want to address that, because, you know, it's,
Just one,
sorry.
well, let's
Yeah.
finish you and then we'll
Yeah.
have him come up and do
Is that-
presentation and we can
that
ask
be made a
questions.
condition?
Well,
Because I thought I heard you say it could be.
that's
but-
I
what
think
we were
noise relative to
proposing.
the light manufacturing, but not to the audio, because it's not a condition of the soup. Is that correct, Steve?
Okay, ask me again, I'm sorry.
So can we restrict Maggie's asking, can you restrict the audio portion, or for that matter, all the noise coming out of this location, whether it's audio or light, even though this is a light SUP, light
As part of the
manufacturing?
Permit condition.
And, well, you can, but realize we already have ordinances in place that restrict all the noise. And so no matter what is going on here, no matter what you approve, the car audio, for example, still has restrictions on decibel level of noise that they have to maintain.
And I understand, and that's where I think the concerned citizens have an avenue to complain with law enforcement if it violates a city code.
And as far as the parking on Old Lufkin Road, is usually where they stage the vehicles before they load them. And with this new proposal and the shipping and receiving area, that's where they'll stage instead of out there on Old Lufkin Road.
So
Which
they
is
will
the-
stage
one of
on
the
the
com-
property, which is,
Right,
that makes sense. And to Maggie's point, you can restrict any kind of unnecessary noise through this SUP relative to the manufacturing side of it, I guess. I don't, okay, yeah, but the audio, no. Does that answer your question?
And there will be some noise during the day because they're bending metal and
business.
cutting, and so that's gonna happen. The metal fence will help a little bit, and it'll, at least the residents won't be able to see into the property and view the operation. There'll be that buffer. And there are a few trees along there too that will help, buffer some of that sound.
So the special use permit will have language in it that says that parking associated with the business, both businesses, well, I guess we can't
It'll
talk
just-
about the car audio business now, but will be contained on site.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so that'll be part of it.
Question
Yes.
again for you, Juan. When we were talking about building a fence as one of the conditions, the trees that go in front are the ones that we are talking, they have to plant trees in front of it, correct?
No, because it doesn't, that's only if it is adjacent to residential area. And there's no residential adjacency technically because Old Lufkin Road divides that. So it's not technically adjacent. The property lines would have to be joining. Abutting.
Abutting.
There's no construction happening that would trigger street tree ordinance.
Got it. Thank you.
Can I ask one more question? And I don't know if he wants to speak, but who enforces the hours of operation? Since that could be
It would be complaint driven. Neighbors would complain and then we'd have to look into it. And if they are operating outside those hours, it is possible that obviously they'll receive a warning. And if it continues, they could get the SUP revoked.
okay.
Good.
Thank you, Juan.
Want to say something, Mr.?
We'll call him up in just a second.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Anything else, Juan? You good? Any other questions for Juan? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Go to presentation item. Mr. Escalante, do you mind coming up? I think some of our commissioners may have some questions for you, please. If you would, when you get up here, please state your full name, address, please.
Cesar Escalante, my business address is 2524 South Street, my residential address is 220 County Road 523.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions for him? Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah,
Please.
in regards to the spillover, we have had some issues because we were pouring concrete, so we weren't able to park inside the area at the time. But as of a couple of days ago, the concrete should be dry and stuff, so we can get the fence up. And we only have 3 employees. We have 2 that bend the metal and 1 that welds. So there are 3 vehicles more than adequately fit in the front of the adjacent parking lot next to us. As far as the noises, yeah, they are hearing noises from the car audio. But I've been doing car audio for 24 years. So that's something that's been going on, not starting now. It's been going on forever. And it's not a lot. We turn it up a little bit to make sure that things don't shut off, that everything works properly. And honestly, we've had the lady directly behind us sometimes that stands out of her door tapping her foot, which I'm not sure if that's the person that complained or not. And the officers, I think in 24 years, we've had them come over 3 times.
Okay.
So to me, in 24 years, 3 times is not too bad. We do keep the noise down. We do respect, of course, city ordinances, and we're not out there doing this at 10 o'clock at night. We have normal hours. We start at 9, and we shut down around 6. So, like I said, and it's very rarely that we have some vehicle that we do a system that shows all the way. But as far as the manufacturing part, the noise, it's barely there. The machine that folds the metal makes a few squeaks here and there that you're not able to hear, within 5 to 10 feet from you. We have a saw that cuts metal. That one you might hear a little bit, but that runs in the mornings for a couple of hours. After they cut the metal, they fold it and weld it. So the welders don't make other than the little arcing sound that you hear with, those noises are pretty much contained within the building.
Mr. Escalante, are you talking about just in general the carport manufacturing, or what about, because you're here for the light permit, so
Yes,
what,
That's what I'm here. I'm here for the manufacturing
So-
part, yes, sir.
on that side of it, is it cutting metal, et cetera, just for?
It's just cutting metal, folding metal, and welding. Like I said, we have 3 people. One that cuts, he helps the other one fold, and then we have a welder.
So they're kind of cross-utilized to do the carport and the lights?
Yes.
Okay.
And right now, like I said, the spillover part is because we didn't have a way for them to park over here on the inside where they're supposed to be because of the concrete that was getting poured.
Okay, so right now you said 3 employees making sure for the carport business, and then how many are for your audio?
For the audio, it's another 3.
Another 3, so 6 in total? How are you, by the way?
I'm great.
Good. The other question that I have is volume in terms of where you're selling your carports. How,
We don't sell our carports, not to interrupt you, sorry.
Sure.
We don't sell our carports in Texas hardly.
okay,
Right now, we have a crew in Tennessee, 1 in Georgia, 1 in Alabama, 1 in Colorado, 1 in where do we have them? Somewhere, I think in New Mexico. So most of them are internet sales.
okay,
So when we receive the order and, we accept it, basically we do the light manufacturing process this. We don't manufacture the metal. We don't manufacture the sheet metal. All that is basically purchased and delivered to us. And that's why, once every 2 weeks, we have a semi-truck that comes in, drops it off. We unload it, and then we fold the trusses and the legs, the actual frame. That's what we make is the frame.
right,
Then we have trucks that come in. They come in, and we don't use our employees for that. It's subcontractors that come in and load 5, 6, 8 at a time. So they have their own, it's basically, most of them have 3 or 4 people in a crew. They show up, they're there for a couple of hours, they load up the load that they're taking, and then they leave. And that's what the problem was before, that they would load up, they would wait outside on Old Lufkin Road, and it
Right.
would make traffic kind of, bad.
Right.
So now, we changed all that. Now that we have the concrete there and they're able to pull inside, we only have them show up 2 at a time, because that's what fits in there. We fit 2 trucks at a time. They load up. Once they leave, the others show up to load.
okay.
So this way it'll be all inside.
Will the trucks be coming from Old Lufkin Road?
No, ma'am. They'll come in through South Street, and they'll drive right there between the building. There's a big driveway where they fit, and they'll leave going out on Lufkin Road.
So that tall metal fence that you're talking about building will
It-
be continuous without,
Yes, and
Without a
it's gonna have a rolling gate that matches the fence. So when you have the gate closed, it'll look like just one continuous fence. You won't be able to tell that there's a fence, a gate there. And it's gonna be a 24-foot wide fence, or gate that opens up, and when they leave, it'll close up again.
How many additional employees is the light business gonna bring in? Is it same staff?
Same staff.
Okay,
That's all
you're
we
just
need.
doing something
That's
else.
all we need to
Okay.
do what we do. We honestly, like the buildings that we send out per week or whatever, those 3 guys plus the person managing telling me, okay, I need this order made, that's all that is required for this.
So how frequent are your sales coming through, Mr. Escalante?
We get them on our computer, every hour, depends on what it is.
So volume-wise in a week, you're producing how many in total?
Buildings
about-
in a week, probably, carports and buildings, probably 50.
Okay. And you said that there's,
But like I said, they leave, pardon me.
right,
again.
no, it's okay.
They leave, 8 to 10 per vehicle. So once they load up and go,
Right,
I know we're asking questions, but I just wanna make sure we're here talking about the light man.
absolutely,
Not the
Yes.
yeah.
carport. Okay.
So you've been doing this for a while, and then somebody said, hey, you need a permit to do this?
no, basically, we had an issue with customers showing up and parking at the church. And the church didn't like that, so they came over there and started some stuff. They weren't very Christian-y, if you want to know what I mean. So,
I'm asking in terms of volume, just because I'm thinking about traffic.
no.
But
and-
what
and
you're answering is
honestly-
good.
And honestly, like, this is something that we'll use while we fit. If we see that things change, we've already started looking for acreage outside of Nacogdoches. But right now, if you notice, things are pretty ridiculous in price.
Right,
They are.
We saw a couple of acres at Central Heights that I remember just 5 years ago were like, I think they were selling for 175. Right now, they divided them up and they're $1 million per acre.
wow,
Yeah, so things have changed quite a bit.
yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Escalante. We'll close that and open it up for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission? Okay, we'll close to public comment and open it up for council discussion.
It appears that the only complaint is about the parking. If he solved that, and I can't see any problem then.
I would agree with that.
Especially if the trucks are gonna be off the road and
Right.
pulling onto the pavement of the business.
Behind his fence.
Yes.
One real quick question, please, sir. Just out of curiosity. The metal carport business is not regulated today there. It falls within the general business. This is the light manufacturing that's
Right,
being
because they're
proposed?
bending the trusses and cutting is considered light manufacturing. And that's why we're.
Light
Never mind.
industrial, yes.
It's not lights.
I'm thinking, okay,
Manufacturing is the trusses.
I am sorry. That's what, the confusion here.
Yeah, it's not lights.
I'm literally
Light
thinking he's building
Yep, light-
commercial lights.
Yep.
Okay.
I would,
Well,
I understand why.
Now, I should just be quiet and my fellow commissioners are
No,
much brighter than me.
No,
Okay, that's perfect.
I would agree with Ruth. It sounds like Mr. Escalante is gonna do what he can to get the traffic off the roads. He does have hours of operations that he's proposed to it. I think for everything, it's good. He's working with it.
I know you're all looking at me, 'cause you know I'm gonna make some comment. Well, I don't see an issue with it, because he's there, and we need we need business and all of that. I was happy to hear him say that he's looking for something outside of town, though, because as we grow, this is gonna be prime commercial real estate and South Street is an area that could really use some businesses, some retail kind of businesses, so maybe someday that'll happen, but for now it is what it is, and I'm okay with it, I guess.
So I've known Mr. Escalante over the years, and he's been a respectful business owner, very polite. I think that in his continued use of entrepreneurship and business, he will do what's right, in my personal opinion, in the years that I've known you. But also, if he moves on to another place, he would have that area to lease out or do whatever he wants to do, sell it. It could perhaps bring that. That's why I asked about future land use and what we plan on doing with it,
Yeah,
because it is prime real estate.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Escalante, for coming in. If there's nothing else, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And so carries. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
You guys are not gonna let me live this down, are you? Light manufacturing?
Worse than
I like that Steve said luminary.
It would've gone right
I-
over my head.
well,
I had
it-
no
it-
idea what you were
it-
talking about.
I literally was thinking he's building lights now. Yeah, so that's I own that one. Alrighty, moving on to agenda item 5C, preliminary subdivision plan. Consider approval of a preliminary plat for the Q Garden subdivision consisting of approximately 19.5 acres located on the north side of State Highway 7, immediately east of Humphrey Road. This request has been submitted by Benefield Estates LLC.
Thank you, Chairman. Juan Paulette, Planning Technician. The proposed preliminary plan includes the construction of a 600-foot minor street, one single-family subdivision with a total of 30 lots and a private common area. The subdivision will be constructed in 2 phases. Phase 1 will include the construction of Q Lane, supporting utilities, and a stormwater detention area. Phase 2 will include the 30 single-family lots. Also, this subdivision is consistent with the 380 development agreement that was approved by City Council in May of this year. The property is zoned R3, 2-family, and is located on the north side of Center Road, immediately east of Humphrey Road. The plan does meet the lot size and layout for the R3 zoning district. This is the subdivision with the topographical overlay, and we'll come back to that momentarily. The proposed plan generally complies with the subdivision regulation. There are a couple of things staff would like to point out about the design. In the cul-de-sac, the front building setbacks for lots 12 through 19 have been moved back from the minimum requirement of 20 feet to 47 feet to meet the 50-foot lot width for R3, which is measured at the setback line. These lots are deep enough that the additional setback will not affect the construction of normal residential structures. The other is the length of Q Lane. It is shown as 600.53 feet, which is 6 inches longer than allowed. Staff has reviewed this and determined that the excess length is de minimis. Staff has received concerns from a resident that lives on Humphrey Road, she is here in attendance. Her main concern is the lots to the north of the cul-de-sac are in a low-lying area, and she would like to preserve that area or protect it. The resident also requested that the 50-foot vegetation buffer not be tapered from 50 foot to 26 foot near the cul-de-sac on the west side of the plat. Steve Bartlett, our city engineer, would elaborate on these concerns at the conclusion of this presentation. Based on the above findings, staff recommends approval for the preliminary plan, and the applicant owner are here in attendance if you have any questions for them. And this concludes staff's presentation. And I believe Steve Bartlett is going to come up and say a few things before we open it up to questions.
Yeah, and I do want to remind our commissioners that our standing on this, on a plat, is very limited of what we can do statutorily by law. So if it meets within the city ordinances, I think we're going to be very limited, if anything, to do. If we were to choose to do so, it would fail at the litmus test of state level. So I think Steve
Thank
may
you
explain
for-
that a little bit. Yeah.
Thank you for iterating that.
Yeah.
And he just took half my speech. So thank you, Shannon. No, I did want to kind of remind you, because this is a different animal, unusual for what you normally do and look at. Plats are, we always tell people plats are a right, not a privilege. So everything else that you look at, zone changes, specific use permits, are basically doing things that we currently don't allow, and they're coming to you to allow them or allow them with provisions, restrictions, or constraints. In the case of plats, the local government code at the state level very much controls what we do. So our ordinances mirror the local government code. And so because they are a right, not a privilege, there's a shot clock, for example, that if we don't act on this within 30 days of application, it's approved. If we fail this for reasons that aren't appropriate, it will still be approved. So I want you to understand that we evaluate these differently. Also, very, very importantly, this is a preliminary plat, sometimes called a preliminary plan, and we even use that terminology in some of our ordinances. So this is where a developer comes to you and said, this is what I'd like to do. And before I go spend $1 million on streets and water and sewer and drainage, and then come back to you and you go, you know what, we really don't like that. He asked for approval of this preliminary plan, and it says if I come back to you with substantially the same final plat, then I can look to you for approval. So this is giving him a kind of it is not a guarantee of that final plat, but it is a footprint that says, yes, if you do this, we will recommend approval to City Commission. Because again, they're investing a significant capital. So that's the reason we have this in place. Also importantly, that this plan does not create lots, does not create anything in the courthouse. It's a picture for you, for us, and it doesn't go beyond here. And that just shows you that this is administrative approval. If y'all remember, lots of 4 or less plats, we approve administratively in the office. Over 4, you approve. Both of these, however, are administrative approvals. You're checking boxes against the ordinance requirements, as opposed to a zone change where you're looking at an alternative that goes to City Council. So these do not go to City Council. You are the final authority, again, because your approval is administrative. So basically, you can approve with conditions, or you can deny. You would deny if they did not meet things like our lot width, our lot depth, our setbacks, street right-of-ways, cul-de-sac diameters. Those are the mechanics of the subdivision of property they're proposing to you. You can approve with conditions. For example, one told you the length of the cul-de-sac was 6 inches longer, and it's because of the way they worked it out. Staff felt like it met the intent of a short cul-de-sac, a 600-foot cul-de-sac, and wasn't, we weren't proposing to readjust the lots to fix it, but you could approve it with that condition that they come back with a 600-foot cul-de-sac. And we're not proposing that, I'm just giving you an example of conditions. So your conditions have to be basically about the plat, about the subdivision of property and what it's being used for, not about how good looking Sam is or whether you like the size of the lots. So,
Wow.
and he is good looking, guys. So I'm sorry, I just want to lay all this because it is a different animal than what you and I do every day here in this. So, and if it's okay, I'm going to jump and speak a little bit about some of the issues that were in the letter, and I know she's here and she'll visit with you as well, and we welcome that. So, because of the way these are conditioned, things like the vegetative buffer are voluntary.
Right.
And things like the access easements are voluntary and for his access. So if Mr. Wright chooses to help respond to some of those, and I think you'll see on this plat, he has responded to some of those, and some he may not have as far as the depth question. He did not move his easement line. But understand that's a civil, kind of a civil matter between him and an adjoiner. We don't have a requirement, you don't have a requirement to enforce that. And I want you to understand that that's a voluntary issue for him. The area that was addressed as being from the National Wetlands Inventory Map, and of course we look at those when we have people come in. They're built in our GIS, and we had early on contacted Sam and his engineer and said, hey, there's a riverine section potential in here. Now realize this is done from generally aerial photogrammetry, color infrared. So is it a wetlands? Is there a stream there? It's just that it's a might be thingy. And so none of these are determined. There has to be determinations for anything on the ground. So very, very importantly, we notify people that these things may exist, but yet we are not authorized jurisdictionally to enforce it. So it's a real critical difference. We don't make people mitigate wetlands. The federal government does. And so we just notify them. Y'all, this is very similar to when you bring a set of construction plans to me for a building as an architect. And I look at it and I say, you don't have any accessible handicap parking spots, and you don't have handrails in the bathroom. I tell them that, but guess what I can't do? I can't fail their plans because the state reviews ADA, not the city. So as weird as that sounds, we would permit a project kind of under protest. We would permit a project. The state would then fail the final occupancy of that project. So things like threatened and endangered species, waters of the U.S., we've talked a lot about together. Those are things that ultimately the jurisdiction is with state and federal agencies. We just try to get everybody facilitated. So I do want you to understand that. Now, in response to that, I do want to tell you that after we talked to them, they've hired an environmental consultant. They've already been on the ground. They've looked at this, and they're moving forward with determinations themselves. There is no stream section there whatsoever. There's absolutely no stream. But they're looking to see if any of the vegetation qualifies, and they'll proceed. We don't have construction plans. We don't know exactly what they're going to do in those areas because they're not presenting that to you tonight. So I wanted you to know that they've acknowledged it. They've engaged professionals, and they're trying to address that in this plan with their actual construction documents. And that's, so I wanted you to realize we have not ignored it, and so we've got that letter. But this is not the plan. This is a picture, and construction documents follow all that. So, and I think that's it. So I'm sorry if you have any questions for me. I'm
No,
happy to
appreciate it,
answer.
Steve. As you can tell, he has to educate us on a lot of things too. We're just, ordinary folks that live in the community that volunteer, and a lot of times we, learn each time we have one of these meetings. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Who is our city engineer, and many other hats too. Before we open it or move to presentation, if the applicant would like to speak, does anyone else have any questions for Steve or Juan? Maggie, are you good?
Are they gonna make a presentation?
I didn't know if, before we moved on to them, if you had any other questions for Juan or,
One, you said something about setbacks for R3, but isn't this R2?
I meant to say,
Didn't you mean to say R2?
no, it's R3,
This is R3.
two-family.
Oh, it
This
is
is-
R3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
R3.
yeah.
But he's doing single, is he doing single family?
He's doing single-family.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. Thank you.
And we'll move over to the applicant if they'd like to speak any, or you're not obligated to, but. If you'd state your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Sam Wright. My address is 2321 Tanglewood. I'm the guy behind this thing. So, I don't apart from what has already been said, I don't really have a whole lot left to add. This really is for smaller starter homes within the community that they seem to be in desperate shortage of. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Does any commissioners have questions for Mr. Wright?
Well, I'll just say that, thank you for working with the budding landowner and for talking to me on the phone. I see that you've changed one of the easements, but I guess opted not to widen that visual buffer next to Ms. Dahanayaki's property. I'll get it eventually. And I'm glad that you've had someone come out and look at the stream, and I assume that they're gonna write you a letter that says what's out there, if it's, are they gonna do a wetland delineation or a determination and send you some documentation?
Well, that would be questions that I'd like to pass over to my engineer and surveyor. That's, I don't have that information yet,
Okay,
so this is stuff that I'm still in the process of getting information on, so.
Absolutely. Michael, are you going to speak on that?
I can real quick. Michael Delaney, 215 Consulting. I'm working with Sam on this. Yes, to your question on the delineation and determination, that's our next step in that, is to have someone come out and do the determination
okay.
on that.
Is it possible to avoid that area when you're building your detention pond?
That's what we want to look at and see.
That would be the.
That'd
that
be
would
the ideal.
Yes, that would be ideal, and I really appreciate you guys being open to changing things to,
It's part of what we want to look at, for
yeah,
sure.
because we do want to protect those natural resources.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to give away what Ms. Dahanayaki has told me, but apparently that area is quite wet. I know there's a drought right now, so when you go out there, it doesn't look wet, but apparently it's wet quite a bit, and it probably does flow most of the time, or at least have water in it. Yeah.
It's a low-lying area,
Yeah.
and so, and when seasonally wet years, it's gonna stay that way, it's gonna be wet.
Yeah.
And seasonally dry years, it's gonna not have much in it, so. It's, it varies, So that's why we need somebody to help us determine that, because it's gonna be dependent on soil types and vegetation types, whether or not that's gonna qualify as truly a wetland environment or not.
Yeah, well, I went out and looked at it, and there definitely is a channel there. I don't know how continuous it is, because I didn't walk all the way up, but at least
Right there
next to it.
at Humphrey Drive.
Yes,
Yeah, there's, especially when you look downstream, as you go upstream, there's
gets a
not
little
one,
lost.
it's just kind of
Yeah.
a low-lying area.
yeah.
So there's no stream bed once you get upstream into the property, so.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For those that didn't know, Maggie, Commissioner Forbes is an environmentalist and a scientist, so she has a lot of knowledge on it. And I want to also say thank you to Mr. Wright for working with him and looking into that. It's a community, and we all have our thoughts and opinions, and this is what makes a better place, is when you actually take into consideration what people are saying and actually working with them on it. So thank you for doing that. You're a good guy, Sam.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, we'll close presentation, move on to, any other questions? Yep, we'll move it over to public comment. You can come up and address. If you keep your comments to 3 minutes, please state your name and your address. Thank you.
My name is Natasha Dehanaika, and I'm at 424 and 426 Humphrey. And so, yeah, I had a couple of concerns, and I'm grateful, thank you, Sam, for already addressing the access easement. And I was curious if you are willing to move that vegetative buffer to give me the same amount of buffering as everyone else has, the 50-foot. And really, I mean, part of it is for the concern of having a visual screen, but a big part of it is also erosion. If you look at the topographic map, our home is very, very high compared to how, it's a very steep drop off, and there's really not a lot of space before our actual physical home, like our building. There's not a lot of space before that drop off, so just as much of a vegetative buffer as we can have will help us with erosion. And so my hope request would be that we could have the same amount of vegetative buffer as everyone else, and also for that to wrap around to the north side of our property so that we can have that protection to help with erosion on the north side of our property as well. So that's my first request that I would love. I know we talked about it, but if we can formalize that, that would be great. And then the other thing is, it's already been touched upon, but I just want to be sure that we are looking into the areas that are low-lying over there. There's a possibility that there is a protected stream and a possibility that there's a protected wetland back there. We don't really know until we do that research. And I know for a fact that there's a stream, because during the snowpocalypse where we were living there, you could see it was snow and then there was a stream. And hopefully we have pictures. I don't know, I'll have to go back and look, but there's a stream back there. That's for sure. So, I just really, as a person who does care about the environment, I do want to be sure that before we go through and destroy this land, that this, particularly that area around the stream and the under lots 12 through 17, where it's very low-lying and you can see the topography change, just want to be sure that we're looking into, getting all the correct permits and being sure that on a state and federal level that it's not supposed to be a protected space. And of course, making sure that the land is appropriate to build on for future homeowners. And I'm more than happy, honestly, to help in any way with applying for grants or anything to help to protect some of that land, if that could be a helpful resource. I'd love to, collaborate with Sam and the city to try and protect some of that land in a way that works for everyone if possible. So, I think that's my main concerns.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
I have a
comments.
comment on that too.
And
For
thank
the-
you for reaching out. We appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
When I said community is something that we do together, Natasha, for those that don't know Natasha, she's a musician and an artist, and she uses nature sounds. And she records a lot of that music, actually, that she layers on top of it from her backyard. So knowing her over the years, too, that's something that's really important to her. It's her livelihood. Most people live in their homes and they like their comfort zones, but then she actually makes her money and her career through that. And I know that has nothing to do with P&Z and what we're doing here today, but I just wanted you guys to know that I'm really proud of you guys for living in Nacogdoches, all of y'all, and thank you guys so much for working all together. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question before?
Absolutely.
Is there some engineering?
To Sam, who do you want to ask
It's
that?
to Sam
Sam.
or his engineer.
Michael, can you
I'm
come
sorry.
back up
I
here,
should have
please?
asked before.
That's okay.
Is there an engineering reason that you can't widen the visual wooded? And I guess another thing that, and again, to your point, I don't know that we can make this part of the approval process, but Mr. Wright had said that keeping those outer buffers vegetated would be part of the HOA agreement or part of the HOA, because obviously it's not an easement, all those parcel little pieces are gonna belong to individuals, so how will you ensure that that remains wooded? And is there an engineering reason why you can't widen it out a little bit on her property?
Right.
Or why it curves in there?
Right now, that's a drainage way for the backyards.
Sure.
And based on the topography, that's the natural course that it wants to go as far as where it's lower in that area. So as you work your way down that edge, it actually starts getting lower as you get closer to that boundary line. So we were trying to maintain that flow path. So you having trouble reading the
No, I can see it. I'm just thinking of other ways you could extend it out and then bring it back into that.
Well, that would require more land disturbance to do that. So as we manipulate, and we try to work with the grades as much as we can, so we can limit how much you have to actually move earth and manipulate the terrain, so that
Yeah, it's a
we
pretty steep area.
minimize our disturbance. Because the more we move and manipulate the earth, the more you have the propensity for erosion and your footprint grows.
And about how many feet is that between the edge of her property and the drainage way?
Gosh, I'd have to go back and take a look and see what that dimension is that we struck on.
Well, most of them are 50 feet, right? So that looks like about 20 feet,
Probably
25?
20 to 25, that's what I'd have
Because
to wager.
her property is built
And
on
that-
fill and it drops off really steeply.
Right, it's, and
so-
actually all that, if you look at the topography there, all that slope is on her side of the property line.
Right.
So there's
But-
not much that the developer could do on her property, I don't think. I mean,
No, but just leaving a wider vegetated buffer would help protect.
at the toe of the slope, yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit, but not necessarily her slope on her property.
Okay,
So,
Right,
yeah, I mean, because he's not proposing to take anything beyond
Right.
those limits.
right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
thank you.
Are there any other public comments on this matter?
Yes,
Please,
ma'am.
Please. If you would state your name and address, please, ma'am.
I'm Helena Abdullah, and I live at 1920 Tanglewood Circle.
Can you say your name one more time? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, too short. Helena Abdullah, and I'm at 1920 Tanglewood Circle.
Thank you, ma'am.
They're pretty much in my backyard. And I'm coming basically from an emotional standpoint. When we moved up there in 1997 to Tanglewood, from the daycare all the way up to my house was woods. My husband and I fell in love with the place because it was quiet. I thought this was my forever place, my forever home. Then, maybe 10 years ago, they built the brick houses, 14 brick houses, directly in front of me and on the circle. And then shortly after that, I almost had a stroke when they did that. But shortly after that, they built the frame houses going down Tanglewood. For me, building those houses within that circle, the parking on both sides of the street is difficult to get through. I have to worm my way through going Tanglewood towards the daycare. And when I called before, the police department told me that if a emergency vehicle couldn't get through there, which they could not, I barely get through there, it would be a hazard and it would be against the law. Notwithstanding that, I think that more than anything, as I said, I'm up here on emotional status and I'm gonna try to be 3 minutes. Change is good. Change is good for many people in many places. Progress is good for many people in many places. However, when you settle down into a place and you think, oh, the trees are here, the animals are here, the fox is here through my front yard, the deer running through my backyard. We even had some hogs at one time. I didn't mind the hogs. I really didn't. They didn't devastate my property. But it's been inundated with homes, new homes, and people don't always stay there. They migrate back and forth. Where these homes appear to be coming, where Highway 7 is, it's a hard drop. I mean, it goes straight down a good 500 feet. And I think of when the rains come, it's going to be pretty devastating for who's ever at the bottom of that hill. Because if you don't put a good flood system in there, and there are no culverts anywhere up on that hill, so the rain just goes wherever it seeks its level. But to not have my quiet space, to not have the tranquility that we bought that place for, the trees. Yeah, we cut down some trees, but we had trees to fall on close to our house. It's lightning hit a tree, knocked out all of our power. But to think of more construction, more noise on a daily basis, and I'm home, I'm retired, I'm 73, happy to be here, blessed to be here. To go through another session of huge trucks coming through, rum, 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 rum. It's bad enough with FedEx and UPS. But on a long-term basis, I like to get out in my yard, and I'm sure you guys too, and have the tranquil quiet. I do. I love that. And to think that I'm going to be nothing against any one person, but the progress that's getting ready to come in my neighborhood is devastating to my heart. It's devastating to my heart because I will no longer have the quiet. I'm constantly picking up trash in my yard now because people come through, they throw Burger King, Taco Bell, beer bottles, whiskey bottles. They're all in my yard. I pick all that junk up, put it in my trash can. And that's on a regular basis because now our neighborhood is a drive-through to University Drive. It didn't used to be. It used to be our little haven, but now it's public domain, and there's nothing I can do about that. But when considering building, I forget how many units you guys said that it's going
Just
to
a
be
reminder,
there.
Ms. Abdullah, you're
Past the
beyond 3
time.
minutes. That's okay, but you can go ahead and you can finish up.
But building that many homes in my backyard, I can't afford to move, but I would probably have to, and I'm sorry about that. But that's not something I would want to see in my neighborhood, not in my back door. I appreciate you listening.
Oh, thank you so
very
much, Ms. Abdullah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming to speak to us.
And I, really appreciate everyone that has spoken here tonight. As our city engineer has stated, we're very, very limited. I mean, we're for progress in the community, but even if we were not for this or want to limit it in any way, legally we can't, outside of what the ordinances dictate. So we really appreciate you up here talking, and it, can tell it's important, very, very important to both of you. So thank you. Are there any other comments here? Public comment? If not, we'll close public comment and open it up for council discussion, commission discussion. Got my cue card here in front of me.
Everybody's looking at me.
Well,
They all looking at me, they know.
you're the
I know.
you're the smart one here.
No, I'm not the smart one, but I do want to say
You are
this
too.
puts me in a difficult
you are.
position. Because, despite what Mr. Bartlett said, and I always push back on Mr. Bartlett, so this is just, I have to do this every time he says something. I push back a little bit. I work for a company that does wetland delineation and that helps big oil companies and municipalities and developers get the permits that they need to comply with environmental regulations. So I can't just look the other way and say this isn't my job. I have to pay attention, and I can't really approve or vote to approve something that might be a violation of the Clean Water Act. Now, I'm gonna take you at your word that you're gonna, get this resolved. I wish that it wasn't just the Clean Water Act. I wish that we all recognize that low-lying areas and streams deserve protection because they're an important resource for all of us, and we should be preserving them. Also, the municipalities, we work for a lot of municipalities that do require documentation that this has been looked at before they will issue a permit. So that's an issue for city council to take up someday, I hope, so that Steve says that we can't enforce that, but we could require that you have gotten all of your I's dotted and your T's crossed before we issue the permit. So that puts me in a difficult position because all I see here is a blank spot. I don't know if there's a water of the U.S. You haven't drawn out where the detention pond is going to go, so it makes it very difficult for me to support the preliminary site plan. And can I just add one more thing? An environmentalist is an activist. I'm an environmental scientist, so every day when I wake up, I'm a scientist, and then occasionally I'm an environmentalist. So just to make that clarification, because everybody says, oh, she's an environmentalist. No, I'm an environmental scientist. Thank you.
I love our
Thank you,
group here,
Maggie.
so appreciate that, Maggie.
Sorry.
Is there any other discussion on this?
I would like to just say thank you, Maggie. We are very fortunate to have you on our board. And for everybody that came and spoke, we do understand the emotional toll it takes whenever development does happen. I do believe, we all have the right to pool collectively together. And if you see land, let's just say in the future, if you do have to move, you don't want to stay, get together with a group of people and start buying land around you so that things like this don't happen because it is a owner issue. So I just wanted to state that and say thank you again for coming to speak.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so let the record reflect. Thank you, everyone that's come in.
Thank y'all.
1 second, we'll close this out. Moving on to agenda item 6, discussion of possible action on future agenda items. A planning and zoning member may inquire about a subject for which notice has not been given. A statement of specific factual information or the recitation of existing policy may be given. Any deliberation shall be limited to a proposal to place the subject on an agenda for a subsequent meeting. Do we have any recommendations today? If not, we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone.